That's interesting. You actually talked about a lot of things that I would like to unpack one by one, so we can actually get enough detail, as opposed to different things, because it touched about a lot of key factors in your life, one of them being law. And it's very interesting how basically from what I understand, your decision to practice law was from that of necessity, as opposed to actual, interest and love for law. Although, you had family members such as your brother that was very influential to that regard, But how does one make that pivot? Because I know for in Nigeria, especially like during that time, theater arts was usually reserved for people that wanted to practice law but couldn't get into law. That was theater arts was one of the degrees that they took. So for you to actually graduate with theater arts with that enthusiasm for for drama and film in itself, and then now still go on to do law, on paper it actually looks like you would be someone that maybe like for whatever reason could not actually get into doing law directly, and then actually use study theater as a crutch. So on paper it's actually interesting where like it's actually the reverse. You've actually been more interested in the film.
Yeah.
So what I want to hammer on, what I want for you to give us a lot more detail on is, when did your love for film first begin?
I think I would trace my love for creativity first before I link it to film, because that is the progeny, that is the journey. So my dad, bless his soul, was a very creative person. He studied at the University of South London in the 50s, studied art and publicity. He came back, practiced with the many advertising agencies in Nigeria. He was a painter, he was a sculptor, very multi-talented artist. So I guess that's a little bit of creativity that came from him. And theater arts was a choice. It was actually a deliberate choice. Like you said, I was actually a science student, incidentally.
Wow.
and I said, you know what, I want to go and do something that I really, really enjoy. And I guess because my father was in that, industry, he allowed me. Most parents would have said, go and study medicine, go and study law, kind of thing. But he allowed me because I guess he knows the value of fulfillment instead of just chasing the dollar, as it were. So I studied theater arts. But when I went into theater arts, I didn't go into it with, as a 19-year-old, I didn't see myself, being a dramatist. But what I did discover was that I could write. And it was a gentleman called Obi Emelonye, bless his soul, he's late now, who discovered that in me. And he gave me the confidence to, when I started directing my classmates in projects, and all of a sudden I felt, wow, I'm not bad at this, And so when I went to London, I did a stage play, worked very hard on it, didn't make any money, and I realized, no, this is not the future. The future is on the screen, whether it is large screen or small screen. So I bought a camera and started teaching myself filmmaking. I bought a laptop and started editing. Everything self-taught. And to answer your question directly, I watched Indiana Jones, The Temple of Doom, as a young person in Jos, where my dad was living at the time. And it made a huge impression on me. It was my moment of
clarity.
I want to do this. Whoever told this story had me in their pocket from beginning till the end. I want to do that to people.
That was the movie.
That was in 1985, before I went to university. So from that point, I became interested in film. I started exploring film. I started watching Indian films without subtitles.
Wow.
But I could follow the story.
Wow.
It gives you a third eye so that you can discern narrative by just looking at people, looking at emotions, looking at how they react, looking at mannerisms. And that was it. The seed was sown. But that seed took a lot of sweat, tears, years to germinate. And it started germinating when I bought the camera taught myself, came back and joined Nollywood, made some films, and I discovered that, okay, I'm playing in Nollywood amongst people who didn't have any training, were mainly traders, and what they were churning out wasn't to my liking, and I couldn't change the taste of the audience quickly. It was going to be a gradual process. So I said, you know what? They've had me for dinner. They've chopped my ears off and my balls off. Pardon my French. But I was going to come back. And The Mirror Boy became my comeback film.